Today, we decode the World War II spy movie, Five Graves to Cairo. Come with us as we dig through the sands of Egypt of this classic spy movie. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
Let's get digging. Shout outs to one of our listeners who calls himself Admiral Boom, who suggested we do this movie. Thanks. All right, hey.
Yeah, thanks. Admiral Boom.
Yeah, we know who you are. Hey, this is an interesting movie with some twists and turns and a few surprises. And it's only an hour and 37 minutes, and it's worth a watch after you listen to this episode, which will enhance your viewing experience.
Okay,
right.
But Dan, before we get started, I have to ask my usual question.
Oh, boy. Okay,
Is Five Graves to Cairo a spy movie?
It's not a spy movie in the traditional sense of what we have covered in spy movies. It's not Bond, Mission Impossible, or even Five Fingers or Eye of the Needle. But espionage is happening, and in a big way. So big that it impacts the part of World War II unfolding on the African continent in this movie.
Okay, so you're not really saying 100% it's a spy movie, but it has spy elements to it. I agree with you. This is definitely a war movie, but I don't think it's really a spy movie. And there's some intelligence being done, but not by a trained spy. I mean, tell me what I missed.
Yeah, not by a trained spy. All right, there is intelligence gathering. By whom? Yeah, well, the waiter at the Empress of Britain hotel in the town is a spy for the Germans. He's a spy. His name is Davos. When our main British corporal, Bramble, survives the tank attack, he assumes the position of Davos, who had really been killed in an Allied bombing. Well, as such, when Rommel arrives, Bramble finds out that Davos was a German spy and continues on that, trying to assemble information for the Allies about Rommel's plans in Africa.
Okay, so this is World War II, and this is the Desert Fox Rommel.
The Desert Fox Rommel, yeah.
Okay.
The famous guy.
All right. Yeah. Well, that makes sense because Bramble was on a tank. So, okay.
Yeah, the Brits really respected this guy, Rommel, and his abilities. So when the other Allied officers are captured and brought to see Rommel, the head officer knows what Bramble is up to and tells him to continue to gather information, not to kill Rommel, because he said, dead field marshals tell no secrets. He wants secrets. That's what spies do. They collect secrets. He tells Bramble, look, you have their confidence and you have freedom. So basically, keep being the spy. So he's not only spying, he's a double agent, Tom. Yeah. And while this is not MI5 or MI6, Bramble is a government asset. He's in the Army. So there you go.
Well, and it's an interesting dilemma that Bramble's put into here.
Yeah.
Because he's in a room with Rommel.
Yeah.
Can he end the Desert Fox's reign? Kind of an interesting position to be in.
That's why I like this movie a lot, because it is different. It takes a different twist on World War II and the operations that happened in World War II. Now, it's not a real operation.
Yeah, so there's intelligence here, not necessarily handled by a government spy, but a guy who, like you say, turns into this double agent.
Yeah.
So we'll flush this out more as we progress. I think it's going to be a fun discussion because I like the movie. I'm just not 100% sure yet it's a spy movie.
All right. It's a spy movie. Get over it. All right. Let's get into the movie, Five Graves to Cairo. It starts in 1942 as the British 8th Army was being beaten back towards Cairo and the Suez Canal in Africa by Rommel, the Desert Fox. I must say, the opening scene of a single tank plodding along in a desert grabs you right away. Desolate, hot, sand, sun. You immediately want to know what will happen next. I love the opening. You quickly realize that there's a dead body hanging out of the top of the tank and a brilliant camera pan cut to the inside of the tank showing shells rolling around and more bodies. Okay, now you have me, and we're only 2 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a really strong opening for me, too, because you're seeing this whole thing and you're like, how did this happen? We can assume.
Yeah.
What's going to happen next?
Yeah. Now one of the crew moves. He's alive. The others are dead. This survivor drives the rest of the story. Immediate tension is built as he falls off the tank in the middle of a desert and the tank is still rolling away from him. Who is this guy? Cleverly, the camera zooms in on his dog tag, and we see his name is J.J. Bramble, and we have his serial number and everything. Wow.
That is really cool. And can you imagine if that was you? You fall off a tank in the middle of the desert. There's nothing around you.
Yeah.
It's got to be a little frightening.
Yeah.
And so for him and for us, because we're watching him kind of walk and struggle walking, we wonder if he's going to survive. I mean, it's a great start.
Yep.
I just wish he had a canteen on him. It would have made his survival more plausible.
Yeah, no. Yes and no. As it turned out, we do not think he had that far to go, as it turns out. So there you go. All right.
Okay. Now, also, we need to make sure you pay attention to his dog tag. Or you mentioned this thing. I'm mentioning it again here because it's important. You're going to see it again later in the movie, used in a very clever way.
Yes, indeed. All right. All right. We have another World War II spy movie here, and we have to see what will happen, why it is a spy movie, and why it is called Five Graves to Cairo.
I'm still questioning why we're calling it a spy movie, Dan.
Well, because it is. All right.
All right. Now, a lot of this movie was shot at the Paramount Studios in California, but they did use a real desert for some of the outdoor filming.
Not in Africa.
Not in Africa, but I've never been to a real desert like this. So I totally had to have this willing suspension of disbelief here. Maybe it was just ignorance on my part, but to me, that looked like an African desert as far as I know.
They did a good job. Yeah. All right, we'll take another look at this later and how detailed they were in getting these shots. As the scene unfolds, and this soldier is now crawling through the sand, seeing only what is below his face, he crawls onto a road, and his reaction with his hands is just stunning as he discovers this. It's not sand, it's a road. And he sees a couple of buildings in the distance. It's the town of Sidi Helfaya, and he laughs hysterically, as one might expect after walking and crawling in the desert heat, not knowing if you will survive.
Yeah, that was really well done. And I love the set of this town.
Yes.
It's a really small town. The buildings are mostly bombed out, but he sees this hotel, the Empress of Britain, in front of him, and they give us a hint that he is delirious. See, that canteen would have been helpful as he starts to speak. I mean, he's talking to no one. I mean,
yeah, right.
Showing his paperwork to no one, asking if this is divisional headquarters. I mean, just wow. I mean,
yeah.
This deliriousness makes sense, though, given his lack of liquid.
Yeah, absolutely. And the heat and everything he went through. In the scene in the lobby where he interacts with a man in a fez named Farid, the hotel owner, and Moosh, is just so well done. Then the Germans roll in. Now Peter Van Echt plays the German Lieutenant Schwegler. For the most part, the accents of the Germans are right because almost all of them were of German ancestry and spoke the language. This guy didn't sound all that German to me, but I don't know. But we'll find out later as we look into this. All right.
All right. Now, spy movie fans may recognize Peter Van Eyck from a movie he did much later called The Spy Who Came In From the Cold. He played Hans Dieter Mundt.
All right.
He looks very different now because he was so young in this movie compared, this was 18 years before, I think he did.
Yeah.
Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
So the Germans are rolling in. They're going into the hotel, and I love the line by Schwegler to Farid. He said, the rooms near the bathroom that works will go to the German High Command, and the one near the bathroom that does not work will go to the Italian general. It's like,
I thought you'd like that one, Dan. I mean, we Italians, we notice when we're slighted. And it sets us up that there's a division between the Italians and the Germans. So
yeah. And hey, we get slighted a little later in the movie by Rommel himself.
That's true. I mean, there's some very solid dialogue in this movie.
Yeah.
And I liked when Schwegler is making moves on Moosh when he asks her what room is hers. Yeah. And she says, next to the room that you are assigning to the Italian general. Mm. He asks, oh, that worries you? And she interrupts and says, I'm not afraid of generals. It's lieutenants I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
Great line. It's a bit foretelling and shows that she can snap back at some of these guys because she's not exactly fans of everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And we also get, at one point later on, Bramble says to Moosh, yeah, you get pretty lonely after a year or so. I've been here 18 months myself, and that's a lot of days and a lot more nights. This quickly highlights how lonely and long this ordeal is with war. And I thought that was a good line right up front to set us up to know how tough this all gets.
Yeah, but was he also hitting on her with that? I don't know. I also like the fact that the Germans are speaking German to each other.
Yeah, that's perfect.
An English speaker, I don't understand what they're saying, but we don't need to, right? Because the actors were German, and people say their accents were very accurate because of that. Mm-hmm. And so it was really nice because the Germans are going to talk, and if you're not speaking German, you're not going to understand it, but they're talking about stuff, right?
Yeah, and like you said, you don't need to understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, throughout this movie, the camera angles are unique and offer a variety of perspectives on what action is taking place, who might be viewing the action, and where they're viewing it from.
Yes.
And I thought this was very creative. And we're going to talk about cinematography more in depth a little bit later.
Yeah. Now, the term 5 graves comes up at about 28 minutes into the movie.
That's the first part of the title.
Yeah. When Rommel is questioning Davos, who Bramble is impersonating. Now, Bramble not yet knowing that Davos was a spy for the Germans at this point.
And Rommel not realizing he wasn't talking to Davos.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, perfect.
But we do hear the term for the 5 Graves to Cairo at that point.
Yeah. Now,
all right, let's shift to some of the things that made 5 Graves to Cairo such a good movie.
All right, that's a good idea, Tom. But first, I want to give a few shout-outs to the listeners who gave us feedback on recent episodes. Please give us your feedback, good or bad. We don't care.
We love feedback.
Yeah, we'll give you a shout-out as well. So, big shout-out to Pietro Rossi, who liked our 1960s James Bond poster discussion, Bill Canis and Kenneth Pizzi, who likes our Raymond Benson, The Hook in the Eye interview, Baldwin Collins, who liked our Count 5 and Die review, hey, another movie with 5. And on our Fiona Volpe character spotlight feedback, thanks to Jim Phelps, Pietro Rossi again, and The Vigilant 109. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Keep it coming.
Yeah, all absolutely. Right. And we should point out Raymond Benson's new book that we talked about, The Hook in the Eye.
Yeah.
Did have its ebook release. It's coming out in chapters, and that has started. Excellent book.
First episode is fantastic. Get it. You could find it if you use Kindle or whatever. All right. Let's get on to some of the things that make this movie good and some more decoding. The first thing is casting.
Oh, it has a great cast. I mean, there are 4 Academy Award nominations and 2 wins within this cast. Not for this movie, but through their careers. 5 Graves to Cairo did garner 3 Academy Award nominations, which we'll cover later.
Yeah, as for the acting, all of them played their parts well. Now, Anne Baxter could have been Ingrid Bergman, and Franchot Tone could have been Cary Grant. That was the original plan, but that didn't work out. These guys did a great job. Farid, played by Akim Tamiroff, I thought he was a highlight.
He was amazing. He was just so good for that role and really brought it to life.
Yeah, he was so great at being this nervous hotel owner hosting the Germans and Rommel. His body movements, his face, what and how he delivered his lines. I thought he was one of the best in the movie. He's been in some great movies, too, like For Whom the Bell Tolls, The Great Bank Robbery, and a lot more.
Yeah, now, his role is not all comedic, but he has some amazingly funny lines. And he delivers them in rapid succession.
Yeah.
And you have to pay very close attention to what he says, because sometimes he says something that's funny that you don't catch because it's so fast. Mm-hmm. But sometimes he's also very poignant. And when he's talking to authority, he gets really nervous and he wants to agree with everything. And then he has to double talk. And in those situations, his speech gets faster. He's more contradictory and funny. So here's a clip that highlights this when he's talking about bed bugs in the hotel.
Full of bed bugs, I'm sure. Oh, yes. Every one of them.
Yes, sir. Full of bed bugs. You see, we have the most wonderful... Oh, no, sir. No, we have absolutely no bed bugs. Not one, sir. I swear we have no bed bugs. Well, you see, this is the only hotel between Alexandria and Benghazi. We have no bed bugs. I swear we have. Well, maybe 1 or 2 in the cheaper rooms, sir.
1 or 2 in the cheaper rooms. All right.
We have absolutely the best bed. No, wait, we have no bed bugs. Well, maybe.
That's a great clip. All right, that's a great clip. Now, there are a bunch of these throughout the movie, a bunch of great lines throughout the movie, including talking about how many towels are in each room.
It's funny.
Just watch and listen to Farid closely. He's fantastic.
Yeah, and as you said, Dan, his body movements, the facial expressions are wonderful. And the actor Akim Tamiroff has 2 Academy Award nominations for Best Actor in a Supporting Role. He's certainly a highlight in this movie.
Yeah, I love them. All right. Franchot Tone as Bramble was also excellent. His calm demeanor, focus, and delivery were also very easy to watch. And he's a solid actor. He was in Mutiny on the Bounty, I Love Trouble, Dangerous, and others in the 1930s. He also did a lot of television series and appeared on shows like Ben Casey and the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. He's fantastic.
And he's one of those with an Academy Award nomination for his role as Roger Byam in the Mutiny on the Bounty.
There you go.
Now, one thing about his performance put a smile on my face. I have to believe he modeled his performance when he was in the persona of the waiter after the great Boris Karloff. If you remember our episode on the 1940 Hitchcock movie, British Intelligence,
yes,
we commented on how Karloff played the butler, Valdar. And I see a very similar approach here in this movie when Tone's doing the waiter persona. Watch his arms, watch his deference and how he holds his head.
That's good.
It's very, very much like Karloff's performance as Valdar.
Yeah, that's funny because I was thinking the exact same thing once he put the outfit on, his uniform. I thought, wait a minute.
We've seen this before.
Yeah. All right. And Baxter. Wow. She's playing Mouche, this French woman who's the maid in the hotel. She was so consistent in delivery. Her stern face, her political position as to how she felt about the Germans and the British, and perfect line delivery. An accomplished actor, she's been in All About Eve, The Ten Commandments, and has done plenty of TV appearances on shows. She really is outstanding in Five Graves to Cairo. For such a strong personality as Mouche, she does have some changes of heart as the movie progresses.
Well, and she shows it. I mean, there's a scene where she's coming down the stairs, and you can just see her visually changing her mind about something. It was really great.
Yeah.
And there's another scene when she's serving Rommel his breakfast in bed.
Oh,
we don't want to give away what happens.
That's a great one.
But based on her previous conversation that had just happened with Bramble, we aren't sure what she's going to do. Watch her hands. Think about that conversation. She leaves doubt in our mind for a long time what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Now, Anne Baxter's the sole Oscar winner in this cast. She took home the Best Actress in a Supporting Role Oscar for The Razor's Edge. She's also received the Best Actress in a Leading Role nomination for All About Eve when she played Eve. Now, the next actor to talk about is one that I've seen positives and negatives on his performance here, but I really liked him. Erich von Stroheim. He's an Austrian, and he plays Rommel in Five Graves to Cairo, and he is solid.
I think so, too.
He's been in many movies, The Wedding March, Sunset Boulevard, Napoleon, The Grand Illusion, and others. And he has a Best Actor in a Supporting Role Academy Award nomination for his role as Max von Meyerling in Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
So this cast is fantastic.
Yeah, I liked him here. I thought he did a fantastic job. Now, I think we should also highlight the performance of Fortunio Bonanova as General Sebastiano. He has an opera background and brings it out in this movie. Sebastiano is the only character who seems to be here for a little bit of comic relief in this dramatic movie. We get some humor from Farid, but Sebastiano is mainly here for the comic relief.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he was excellent. And he does have an opera background, so it fit.
Yeah.
And I also like how they used him to highlight the disdain between the Germans and the Italians, often with humor.
Yeah, they did a good job. There are moments in the movie where you hear what the plan is by Bramble and Mouche and others, and you wait to see if, in fact, these plans will be executed. Will they all go smoothly? Nah, the things never go smoothly. They can't. Who will interfere, if anyone, and who will stand by? What will happen? The movie is constantly leading us to the question, what's going to happen next? I thought they did a great job of that.
Yeah, and another thing I thought they did a really good job with in Five Graves to Cairo is the music. What do you think?
The music, you know, I love talking about the music. I agree. I thought the music was tense and revealing in scenes where you must wonder for a second, what is happening? It was well-paced with great use of horns. I love the horns. And repeating bars and refrains and ups and downs to lead us, the viewer, up and down as well. I thought it was great.
Well, you know, I'm shocked that it was a good score. I mean, it was only Miklos Rosa who did it. I mean,
yeah,
he's a
right.
three-time Oscar winner, 17-time nominated composer. Yeah, you're likely to have a good score underneath this thing.
Yeah, and it absolutely stands out as a highlight, and it is well integrated into the story. That's what I like. It was well integrated. Now, the next positive is, of course, the cinematography. We talked about this a little bit. Again, outstanding. John F. Seitz received a Best Cinematography Academy Award nomination for his work on Five Graves to Cairo. He lost out to Arthur C. Miller, who was the cinematographer for The Song of Bernadette, and it was up against Casablanca as well. Wow. This was one of the 7 nominations Seitz would receive throughout his career. Fantastic. Five Graves to Cairo was shot in black and white. The crispness, the lighting, the shadows, reflections, the light through the shutters, all of this was wonderful. It was like you were there.
Seitz does a great job here, really telling us the story through his camera.
Yeah.
Does that well.
Yeah. Now let's look at the direction. Billy Wilder is the director and one of the writers for this movie. This is a well-directed movie, and this is only Billy Wilder's 3rd movie that he directed. He directed Mauvaise Grain, also known as Bad Seed, in 1934, The Major and the Minor in 1942, and then Five Graves to Cairo in 1943. This is a director with talent, and he went on. And yeah, as he went on to direct some fabulous first-rate movies like Double Indemnity in 1944, Sunset Boulevard in 1950, Stalag 17 in 1953, and Sabrina in 1954. Oh, and let's not forget The 7-Year Itch, The Spirit of St. Louis, Witness for the Prosecution, Something Like It Hot, The Apartment, and more. This is a talent in the direction world, and we see it here in Five Graves to Cairo.
Something Like It Hot is my favorite comedy of all time. I think that's
a great one. It is a great one. I've been to that hotel in San Diego, too.
Yeah, the Hotel Del.
Yeah. The camera angles, the position of the actors, the lighting, the dialogue. He wrote a lot of the movies he directed, actually. All extremely solid and well done.
And they were solid enough that he got 6 Academy Awards, in addition to 15 other Academy Award nominations. Yeah. So kind of like Seitz on the cinematography.
Yeah.
And it isn't just his directing, but his writing that made this and many of his other movies a success.
Yeah, his writing is fantastic. The story unfolds effortlessly here, and the dialogue is very, very good. There is one shot towards the end of the movie where there is a scuffle, and a flashlight falls in a darkened room. And we see the shot basically from the floor, staring into the flashlight beam or the torch, and we hear the scuffle and then gunshots without seeing anything but the light. I loved that shot. It was creative, tense, mysterious, fantastic.
Well, and there's also another scene in there right before that where there's a chase and one person's chasing another person, and you never see the person being chased. It's just doors closing as the guy who's chasing him is like, oh, I missed him again. I thought that was really cool.
Well done.
And that kind of leads us to the next positive here, which is the production value.
Yeah.
I mean, the sets were really good. The hotel, which is the main set piece, was fantastic. The details.
Yes.
I mean, the lighting through the windows, the rooms, the fixtures, the ceiling fans, the dining room, the picture of Queen Elizabeth, individual rooms like Rommel's with lots of details, props like the whiskey decanters and the glasses. I mean, these are all period pieces, all creating a feel for an in the middle of nowhere in Egypt. I mean, that's so believable.
Yeah.
So much so that Five Graves to Cairo was nominated for Best Art Direction, Interior Decoration, Black and White, with Bertram C. Granger, Hans Dreyer, and Ernest Fetge being recognized.
Yeah. And we should also point out the Edith Head's costuming. You all kind of heard of Edith Head.
You should.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a lot of the costumes were military uniforms, but Tone's waiter costume and his one boot, plus Moosh and Farid's costumes were all excellent. Edith Head has won the most Oscars by any woman. In fact, in each of the years from 1948 all the way through 1966, she had at least one and often 2 Oscar Best Costume Design nominations.
So she was competing against herself.
Oh, my God. Although she did not get a nomination for Five Graves to Cairo, probably because of the extensive military uniforms, we think she was spot on here as well with the other costumes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Now, Dan, you know that I like my Columbo. Well, Edith Head did a cameo on the Columbo episode Requiem for a Fallen Star. The lead antagonist in that episode was Anne Baxter. They were good friends in real life.
Oh, my God.
Now, we mentioned the writing here, and we mentioned that Billy Wilder was involved, but so was Charles Brackett and Lajos Biró. He wrote the original screenplay. I mean, the writing is really good. There's a line, 2 steps back, please. And it comes up twice in the movie. It's said by 2 different people, and it's a very powerful piece of writing. It's impressively used both times.
It is.
And I especially like when Rommel says to Moosh,
"You're suggesting some sort of bargain? This is a familiar scene, reminiscent of bad melodrama. Although usually it is not the brother for whose life the heroine comes to plead, it is the lover. The time is midnight, place the tent of the conquering general. Blushingly the lady makes her proposal, and gallantly the general grants her wish. Later the lady very stupidly takes poison. In one Italian opera, the 2 even go so far as to sing a duet."
see, I mean, that's just, if you take that line, and they're poking fun at themselves and the industry with that line, but it fit for the scene.
Yeah, it did fit for the scene. The scenes flowed extremely well, and the editing, I thought, was crisp and clean throughout the movie. Again, earning an Oscar nomination for Doan Harrison. Excellent. Now, there is tension between Bramble and Moosh at several points in the story. And because things are so desperate in war, with loved ones, loneliness, the constant threat of death, as a viewer, you understand and you really cannot tell what a person will do in these situations. Creating this angst in us, it's done so very well.
The thing I like about it is it's easy to put yourself in their position and think, what would I do?
What would I do? Yeah. And you don't know what they will do. There is also deceit and levels of trust or mistrust. We know that Bramble is posing as the German spy Davos, who was stationed at the hotel before his death from the bombing. But the Germans didn't know that Davos was dead, so they think that Bramble is Davos, and that indeed they want him to continue his spying. But there's some captured British officers, and so we have a little more tension building up as these captured officers are brought for a lunch meeting with Rommel. And yes, they stayed here before, and the British colonel, who knew Davos, sees him now, and he knows this is not Davos.
Bramble is not Davos. That's very true.
So, what will happen? Again, this is a very simple scene when the story of this unfolds, but it is delivered quickly and effectively through dialogue between Farid and Bramble.
And I think the dialogue between Bramble and the British officer, the captured British officer, was excellent, in part because of the way they use their eyes.
Yes.
They say a lot through their eyes, like, oh, I know what's going on, but I can't let it known that I know what's going on here. So we're going to both play along.
Yep. We see this group of British officers when Rommel, who's entertaining these British officers who've been captured, he allows them to ask him 20 questions because they were curious about what he's doing, right? The question of supplies comes up, and Rommel said, "We prepared ahead of time." Rommel says, "It is not the supplies which reach us. It is we who will reach the supplies." Now, Rommel tells the British officers what they did in 1937, 2 years before the war began. This is a big hint.
Yes,
and
it is.
Bramble's listening to this all along because they think he's the German spy, Davos. And of course, the British officers are there thinking, oh, okay. And like you said, there was another connection between the eyes, between the British colonel and Bramble while all of this was going on. And because these British officers are captured and they're not going to be escaping, Rommel's kind of like rambling on. So they ask him where these supplies are. And he said, that is question 21. I'm thinking, wait a minute. I don't think it was question 21. They only asked about 10, I thought. But he wasn't going to answer that one.
Yeah, no, I like the scene a lot. I didn't like its premise because there's no way Rommel would do this. Because if those guys somehow did escape, he's let the cat out of the bag.
Well,
and you need
he opened the bag. He opened the bag. He didn't say anything about detailed about. Yeah.
But you as the viewer, like these people who are captured should be doing, you've got to pay attention to everything Rommel does, especially in this scene.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's a big hint as to the phrase of 5 graves to Cairo.
Yep.
But in watching this scene, you're unlikely to pick it up, but it's a big hint.
Yeah, pay attention. All right. And also remember the name Kronstadter. He was a German archaeologist digging for pre-dynastic tombs along the Mediterranean. And a photo of him appears at one point. All right, so the writers, actors, and director did a fabulous job of creating all of these sub-stories that are crucial to the big story. That was really well done. Now, Rommel is staying in room number 5, which is a focus element for both Moosh and Bramble. Pay attention to room number 5. It comes up many times. The writers and directors build a nice sub-story around this at one point in the movie for a couple of minutes, actually. And again, very theatrical music here, but it adds to the unfolding of the story without interfering with it. I like that.
Now, we still don't know about the 5 graves to Cairo. What is it? Told you there's a hint here.
So not exactly. Yeah.
Rommel does know what it means. And the 5 graves to Cairo have become the MacGuffin in this movie. What are they? How are they going to be used? Who needs to know about them? Which side are they on? And will they benefit the Allies if they do figure it out?
Yeah. Even if Bramble has figured out how the Germans got supplies into Egypt, it's the where that's important. Now, remember the map of Egypt. Why was Rommel talking about certain letters when bragging, too? He's like, Well,
come on. Even in Bond, I'm the director of Station V in Vienna or whatever.
Yeah, right.
It's a lot of letters. It's a lot of stuff from the alphabet.
Yeah. At one point, Moosh tells Bramble that he's talking like alphabet soup, spouting off letters trying to figure out Rommel's ramblings. Well, I had to check. Alphabet soup made from pasta was first introduced in 1867. So, okay. So,
you got me on that
They can
one.
talk about alphabet soup if they want. And even earlier, actually, in Paris, they had a version of pasta that was stamped with the alphabet letters. So that was pretty cool. Now, metaphorically, the term alphabet soup was used to describe a confusing abundance of acronyms or abbreviations or something, which probably is the case here, though Moosh is indeed French. So she may have known about the alphabet soup.
I don't think they were serving alphabet soup in a bowl.
No, but she knows about it. All right. Anyway, look through your soup for the answer, or somewhere else. There are some codes and secret signs in this movie, too. So enjoy the unfolding of the story, which is very well done. And some parts are very revealing as to what might come next. So pay attention. All right. Sometimes Allied bombings do not work in the Allies' favor also, I might want to add.
Well, that's true. But we also have to remember that this movie is not based on historical facts.
No,
right?
It is not.
The events in the movie in terms of 5 Graves of Cairo never really happened in World War II. But it's an interesting story with what they did here. Because this movie demonstrates clearly that it's strategical thinking that goes on in planning attacks and counterattacks. The starkness of war and the loneliness of war and its brutality are key.
Yeah.
Yes, the British do come back to the town from the beginning of the movie, Sidi Hathaya, and they do it in force. And there are sad moments in this movie, but it exhibits for all viewers to see the reality of war. War is not necessarily a happy place.
Yeah.
And this was one fictitious story that was like so many real scenarios from World War II.
Yeah. Now, here's some interesting facts about the movie. There are some inaccuracies in terms of equipment being used.
Shocking.
For example, the tank shown in the very beginning of the movie is really an American tank, not a British one. Now, credit to the production team. They tried to get a British tank, but they couldn't. All right. Cinematographer John F. Seitz, who we mentioned, and director Billy Wilder, they examined many actual black and white photographs of the real locations of the settings featured in this movie, including battle shots, to give the movie the right look and feel of authenticity. So you can check out this great website, classicmoviehub.com. They got a lot of stuff on all kinds of movies. According to the book, The Great Spy Films by Leonard Rubinstein, this movie was released in early 1943, shortly after the British victory at El Alamein in North Africa, and actually used some footage from the battle in the closing scenes. Of course, the reason for success was not what happened in the movie. That was fictional. I looked closely to see at the end of this movie 5 or 6 times to see if there were some real shots there. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure there were.
That shows you how good it was. Right?
Yeah, maybe.
Another interesting thing about this movie was that the lead characters played roles in the movie that had different nationality to what these actors were in real life. Now, you talked about a lot of the German officers who spoke German because they were German actors.
Yeah.
But Anne Baxter was an American who played a French woman. The British Corporal John Bramble was played by the American Franchot Tone. German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel was played by Erich von Stroheim, who was an Austrian, which is why his German accent was a little bit different than some of the other characters.
Yeah.
All right. And one of my favorite characters, Farid, probably my favorite in the whole movie, was the Egyptian hotel owner. In reality, Akim Tamiroff is Russian.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Now, this was nominated in 1944 for 3 Academy Awards. As we mentioned, it was in the black and white category. So the nominations were specifically for black and white movies. And we mentioned Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction and Interior Decoration, and Best Film Editing. All right.
Okay, so Dan, this is a war movie. Most war movies are really propaganda movies. And I'm not even asking if it's a spy movie here. Is this a propaganda movie? Now, to me, any movie produced about the war, during the war, probably was a propaganda movie. And to me, this sure is, but it's a good one.
Yeah, well, that's definitely a propaganda movie, without doubt.
There's some speeches that happen and there's some speechifying going on.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's to be expected. Lastly, what really did happen as a result of this movie in real life was that Brigadier Dudley Clark, the commander of the British Deception Department, who was based in Cairo, saw 5 Graves to Cairo in January 1944 and was inspired to create Operation Copperhead. Operation Copperhead formed part of Operation Bodyguard, which was the cover plan for the invasion of Normandy in 1944 with the intention of misleading German intelligence, in this particular case with Copperhead, to mislead the German intelligence as to the real location of General Montgomery, who the Germans knew would be part of any invasion plan by the Allies in Europe. So,
well, they also thought Patton was going to be where it was happening, too.
Yeah, right. They did a lot of good deception stuff. This is all part of the war and the strategic planning. They hired an actor, M.E. Clifton James, who looked a lot like Montgomery, and they trained him in the way he dressed, his movements and actions, and also that he would look like Montgomery. And then they made him appear in places far from Normandy and the planning powers to deceive the Germans as to his real location. And it's like, man, this is fantastic. This actually came as a result of this movie that's happened. So, and in this guy, M.E. Clifton James, the actor, he subsequently wrote a book called I Was Monty's Double. Hey, that's pretty cool. All right.
Okay, Dan, before we wrap this episode, we've got to come back to this. Is 5 Graves to Cairo a spy movie?
Yes, you saw all the spying that was going on. He was a double agent, as a matter of fact, as we said. Absolutely, it's a spy movie. Is it a war movie? Yes, of course, it's a World War II movie. But lots of spying happened in World War II, and this is one particular incident of that. Yes.
Okay, I think you convinced me that this is a spy movie, but a different one than we normally decode.
It is.
There's a dead spy who's the real spy. We never see him alive. I guess Bramble kind of turns into a reluctant, but good thing, very smart spy as he assumes Davis's role as a waiter, then spy. Yeah. And I think that was really just for his own survival. So maybe this is a spy movie after all.
It's a spy movie as much as any of the Hitchcock movies are spy movies, where people who are not spies get dragged into a spy situation. Yes, of course. All right, that's a wrap of our decoding of 5 Graves to Cairo. If you want to stream this movie for free, as of this recording in early June 2025, you can find it on archive.org. All right, this has been Dan.
And Tom.
Of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our show Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Help us out and subscribe to our show through your favorite podcast app. We are everywhere. Thanks for spending time with us.